and welcome to the Appreciative Recovery Show, where science meets spirituality. My name is Kelly Knox. I am the host of this show. We at Appreciative Recovery believe in curiosity, self-compassion, and connection. So today's guest is TeriLeigh, who's in visiting us from Minnesota. TeriLeigh uses mind-body science to help people find an internally balanced way of living. She understands chronic pain and has learned how to alleviate it through scientifically based mind-body-spirit integration. Maya Angelou once said, "When you learn, teach," and so it is with TeriLeigh. She took her personal experience, studied the science behind it, and is helping people heal all over the world. So welcome, TeriLeigh.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what brought you to this kind of work?
Well, I am a proponent of the concept that the gift lies inside the wound. So our wounds, as we heal from them, we learn the gifts of our lives. And that comes from my own experience. In my 20s, I suffered a severe clinical depression, and my body rejected all medications. So I had to find non-medicine ways to heal, and that meant research alternative ways of healing and health and wellness. And I found that for the depression, I needed to change my body chemistry through exercise mainly. And I became a gym rat, and I was at the gym 3 or 4 hours a day in order to balance my hormones and endorphins and so forth to yield and stave off the depression. And then several years into that, I found yoga. I was coaching a synchronized swimming team, and my assistant coach was a yoga teacher. She said, "Come to my class." And one yoga class did for me what 4 hours of a gym session would do. So that's when I realized, oh, something's magical here. That I knew the concept of exercise would help the body. But yoga, watching the teacher and watching myself change through positive intention really had an impact. And I'm a writer and I'm a teacher myself, so I really wanted to learn about linguistics and neuroscience and what is it in our minds and our thoughts that connect with our bodies when we're doing physical action. So my wound of depression turned into my gift of studying science of how the mind works with the body. And couple of years into my yoga, I was hit by a truck. Oh. Pedestrian walking across the street, truck wins. And I had been born with a scoliosis that I was working through my yoga to treat that pain, but then getting hit by the truck, I had major, of course, chronic pain from that accident that further caused the issues of my scoliosis. And again, my body rejected all medication. I couldn't take any painkillers. So I had to then study the anatomy, the physiology, and the science of how pain works in the body and how to heal that through breath and mindfulness and body positioning. And I actually, over about 5 years, I straightened my scoliosis and healed all of those injuries from the accident. So through those years, I discovered and practiced and understood anatomy, physiology, neuroscience, linguistics, and how our minds and our bodies work together with our breath. And finally, more recently, the last 5 years, I went through a major trauma. My husband decided to end my marriage suddenly and rather violently, and I had to then every day go through a process of healing my emotions without letting the depression creep back in. But in that leaving of my marriage, I ended up homeless. And so homeless and working through all the emotion of that and trying to keep myself in check, I realized I needed more than just an hour of yoga every morning. So I worked and figured out, what if I applied my yoga to my everyday life? So my wounds all became what I now call the mosey method. And it's an exercise of combining a body action with a specific mindful intention with a breath that I did in 3-second increments all day long. And that helped me keep myself healthy and process all those pains and heal. And now it's a matter of preventative medicine. I'm just happy and healthy.
Well, that's a story.
Thank you.
So, yeah. And you know, you used the word I had to because the medication didn't help you, so you had to study. No, you didn't. But something inside you brought you there, and now you're sharing what you've learned with other people and really helping other people.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I sat through your chakra webinar course, so that was really fascinating. And
thank you.
And thank you for sharing that with the world. And
if you don't mind, I'd like to show you one of those Mosey Method exercises and how it works.
Can we tell the audience where you got the Mosey Method name from?
Yes. I was trying to come up with a concept, a name for this system of body, mind, spirit exercises. And I went to a dog park and said, I'm going to sit under this tree until I come up with a name. And I just sat there and contemplated and meditated and breathed and thought, what am I going to name this thing? And this giant Great Dane, I mean, this guy had a head this big, came bounding through the woods. And he came up to me and he sat next to me. And I prepared myself for a big slobber. And he just touched his nose to my cheek. And then with a pogo stick, he bounced to this side of me and touched his nose to my cheek. Wow. And then he ran to his owners, circled around them, and came back and did the same thing. And he just exuberated this life intensity of, this is what life is about. Ease and grace and fun and play, and he was fully healthy. And I thought, that's it. So as the owners walked away, completely oblivious to me and my interaction with their dog, they called him, Mosey, come. There it was, the Mosey Method.
All right, let's
try the exercise.
Try the exercise.
And just stand like you're waiting in line at a grocery store or anything, just your normal stance. Right. And I'm going to try to knock you over. Right. And see how you lose your balance.
I did.
Do the same thing for me, one hand on my shoulder.
Like this?
Yeah. And see how it knocks us off the balance.
Right, right.
Let's change your posture and change your intention. So you're going to make your feet straight.
Okay.
And you're going to soften your knees just a little bit.
Okay.
So you feel the weight in your heels and in your butt.
Okay.
Yeah? Now start breathing really deep. And as you breathe, you think, I'm rooted. I'm stable. I'm safe.
Say it out loud or just...
In your mind or out loud.
I'm rooted, I'm stable, I'm safe.
Yeah. Okay. Any one of those concepts of just feeling more grounded, more activated in your lower strength body.
Okay.
Keep breathing that, keep thinking that as I try to knock you over. Try to knock me over.
Same thing.
Feel how it's much more sturdy and
I actually
stable.
feel the difference in my body.
And it's a physical shift. It's a body action that does change how your body's functioning. But then that mental intention of I am stable tells your body to be more stable. But at the same time, your body's telling your brain, you are stable. You feel emotionally more solid, more grounded.
Right.
And then the breath processes all that through your system, so it changes your hormones.
Right.
Your breath tells your hormones to put the feelings in your body and tells your body to do the functions of feeling safe.
Wow.
So I've created a number of these exercises, and every time I come across a client or an experience in my own life where I need to change my emotions in this moment, or a client comes to me and says, I need help with this, I create a Mosey Method exercise of, well, do this body action with this mental affirmation with a deep breath.
Right.
It takes 3 seconds, and instantly you're feeling different.
Yeah. I'm going to share this with the audience because you shared that with me on a previous phone call, our first conversation together, and you had told a client to brush her teeth with her left hand, and to kind of visualize and think that a certain habit had changed. And I was like, and I even told you, I said, I'm going to try that for a habit I have. And, I actually have. Every morning I'm brushing my teeth with my left hand. Every night I brush my teeth with my left hand. And I repeat, I'm doing things differently. I use my own affirmation. Not too much sharing here. But it's really worked. It's shifted me. I mean, I haven't completely freed myself from this particular habit I'm trying to free myself from, but I could feel the difference.
Yes, that's what it does, is it changes your nervous system, it changes your mindset, and it changes how your hormones move through your system, so you're feeling different, and it's very, very subtle. And it's the concept of we are what we repeatedly do. So if you do something over and over and over and over again, you're creating that new habit in your system.
Right.
So by brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand and thinking about changing a habit, you're telling your system, I can change out of the norm into something new, because you're activating that different nerve wire within your system.
Right. Which goes to everything's connected,
Yes.
right? So it's our thoughts are connected to our body language.
Right.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about body language and how that plays into all of this.
This amazing TED Talk by Amy Cuddy, who's a professor at Harvard. She talks about body language and how it impacts people and how they receive you. So she did a research study of people going into a job interview and told some of them to sit in a closed posture as they waited, and others to sit in an open posture as they waited for their interview. And then she asked the interviewers, who would you hire? And more often than not, they hired the open posture people, because the open posture people are changing how they're perceived in the world.
So just based on so Amy Cuddy asked them based on just observation and not conversation?
Based on everything.
Oh, okay.
But what she discovered was that those with the open posture came in with a more confident approach to their interview. They were more clear in their articulation and communication, and they were able to present themselves in a way that the interviewers received them and wanted to hire them.
Yes.
And that's a gross motor example of just closed posture versus open posture. So what I do with the Mosey method is even more fine-tuned or fine motor skill in something as simple as when you want to let go, we grip with our hands, we hold on with our hands. So if we allow ourselves to open up our hands, we are then opening and letting go and opening ourselves to receive. And that message through the symbolism of our hands goes to our brain. And our brain then receives that message and thinks and tells our body to be more open and letting go. And at the same time, if we're thinking that thought, I let go, I release, then our brain is telling our bodies to not grip so much. And then the breath, which is really spirit, the Latin word for breath is spiritus. So breath is spirit. So a body action with a mental intention and a spiritual breath, moving all that works together. And so body language doesn't just work with how we are perceived by the world, like Amy Cuddy says, but it changes how we perceive and feel ourselves.
Right, which then we present ourselves different, and then we're perceived. So it's sort of this cycle.
It's a full cycle.
Yeah, it's a full cycle. Yeah.
And energy is contagious.
Yeah.
So if we present ourselves as open and letting go, our open letting go energy is going to be more contagious to people around us. And people around us will also then be more open and letting go.
They'll respond to that.
And there's scientific proof to that. There's a scientific study called the law of facial mimicry.
Okay.
And just me looking at you, you're wanting to smile because I'm smiling.
Right.
We want to imitate the people around us. What we see and what we receive comes back to us. It's a karmic response. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I'm changing your energy with my smile, and you can't help but receive it.
Right.
So we do have an impact on other people by how we present ourselves to the world.
Yeah.
And we start with ourselves by changing our own internal chemistry.
Right. So speaking of energy, we have energy locations throughout our body, right? And the word for it is chakras. A lot of people go, chakras. Don't talk to me about that. That's too, as you would say, woo-woo-ish.
Woo-woo, mumbo jumbo, esoteric.
Esoteric. But it's not. It's not. Chakras are not. They're energy centers, and there's energy all around us. So talk to us a little bit about the science of our energy centers.
The way I understand energy is, if you look at it from a quantum physics or a physical science perspective, it's atoms and molecules. We're all made up of the same stuff. We're made up of atoms and molecules. And at the very ground level, an atom is a nucleus of protons and neutrons, And then spinning around that nucleus is electrons.
Yeah.
And the energy is that movement. Understand?
Yeah.
And then when one atom joins with another atom to form a molecule, how that happens is the electrons share the nuclei. So two atoms merge together, and the movement of the electrons among each other is energy.
And this is all invisible to us.
This is teeny tiny. It's invisible and not invisible, because when we even move our bodies, we're just a collection of a whole bunch of atoms and molecules moving and forming and shaping.
Right.
And energy is the atoms and molecules reorganizing themselves. Going back to that original concept of grade school science, energy is neither created nor destroyed. Atoms don't create or manifest out of nowhere. They just reorganize themselves. So that's what energy is. And the energy centers in our bodies are where those atoms and molecules, no matter how tiny or minute, or that electricity of atoms and molecules, join together. So think of it this way. We're full of nerves, right? And a nerve is a line along from our brain through our spinal cord out into our limbs. And that nerve is where messages from our brain go to our body, and from our body go back to our brain through the spinal cord. And those messages are atoms and molecules moving along those nerve cords. Those nerve cords intersect, and the message then has to come in and move around to go to a different part of the body. That intersection is a chakra.
Okay.
And I like to think of it as a roundabout, like a rotary in the traffic. And the road is the traffic line. The road is the place where the cars, the little atoms and molecules, move. And then it gets to a rotary, and it has to move around and shift directions and so forth. But when it goes into that rotary, that roundabout, it's a three-dimensional rather than just two-dimensional like a traffic circle. And in that three-dimensional, a bunch of energy, atoms and molecules, join, and they have the opportunity there in that space to reorganize themselves more, jump ship from each other, change around, and change their directions within your body. So your chakra is just a place where energy reorganizes itself and redirects its patterns and its traffic.
So where are these spots in our body?
So every time you have a nerve crossing, there's a chakra.
Okay.
That's 72 million of them.
Oh.
But along your spine, from your brain down to your tailbone, along that spinal cord are the major intersections. And there's 7 major ones there.
Okay.
And each one joins at a place in your body that's symbolic, but also anatomy and physiology of what that body part does for us. So when I had you stand up and change your body posture, I was readjusting your root chakra by readjusting how your feet worked. And that reorganized how the atoms and molecules in your root chakra were functioning by changing your posture and then sending the message from your brain to tell your legs to be that way, and sending the message from your brain to tell your mood to be that way. Your legs told your brain, you're safe, you're solid, you're structurally organized, and the nerves there then told the rest of your body to be that way. And every single of the 7 chakras hold a different purpose. I won't go through all 7, but the root is about support, because that's what your legs do for you. They support you. Your sacral, which is your hips, is about fluidity and movement. Well, isn't that what the hips are about?
Right.
Get it? Or your heart is about openness and connection, and that's what you do with your arms and your hands, and you relate.
You hope that's what it's about.
Yeah. Well, the heart is giving and receiving all day long. You give to others, you receive from others. You put out into the world, you take in from the world. Yep. Your heart and lungs are doing that all day long. So every part of your body has a symbolic action that physiologically is doing its job, that mentally, emotionally connects with how you feel in your soul.
And based on the exercise, these, I'm going to call it shifts, like the shift from you being able to tip me over to becoming solid, it didn't take a long time.
It's almost instantaneous.
Yeah.
That's how quick your nervous system responds. If you touch a hot stove, you respond instantly. It's almost unconscious.
Yeah.
And the whole goal is to get your body to do these things almost automatically.
Right.
So you need to start by making it a conscious action. If you were to do that standing exercise 20, 30, 40 times a day, consciously thinking that way, eventually your body will find that to be your norm.
Yeah.
And when you come to stand, you'll just stand like that normally. And if you're coming to stand like that normally, then your body's automatically telling yourself, you're stable, you got this, you're okay.
Yeah.
And then you feel that way in your life, and it perpetuates into how you're engaging in your world.
Right, right. That's all very interesting to me. One of the things I wanted to bring up too is a lot of this show, we talk about things that, 10, 15, 20 years ago would have been thrown into this new age category, right?
Right.
Or in, the whole woo-woo thing, because I say that a lot on this show, because we touch on these touchy-feely topics, and science is changing that, because they're not touchy-feely topics. This is actual science, and MRIs, or is it MRIs? But these type of things show the shifts that happen in our brain when we focus on this kind of stuff, right?
Right. It's just that in the last 10, 15 years, brain science has evolved so much, and we can take brain scans and actually see what's happening. And in the last 15 years, practices like yoga and Tai Chi and so forth have become more popular. Fitness always goes through their fads and crazes, and yoga was the big one maybe 10 years ago.
Right.
It just burst on the scene. It's not going away.
I don't think it's going to go away.
It's not going away. Yes, CrossFit has come in and other ones have come in, but yoga is not going away because it works.
Yeah.
And I think if we can use things like the Mosey method, making yoga part of our all-day, everyday moments of life, we can evolve a major shift on how the world functions.
Yeah, yeah. One person at a time.
Yeah.
Right, right. So, as I said earlier, you're visiting us from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit what brings you to Cape Ann. I know that you're doing some classes at Cape Ann Yoga,
Mm-hmm.
right? By the time this airs, you'll be long gone. Those classes will be done. So
Yes.
talk to us a little bit about what you'll be teaching folks and what folks will have learned from your
Remember I said I was homeless. I'm still essentially homeless. I still just travel from place to place to place teaching. So yoga studios and wellness centers bring me in for a long weekend or a week to teach classes and workshops. And they're not yoga classes as we know necessarily where people are going through mats and movements. I teach these Mosey method exercises. So tomorrow I'll be teaching a class called The Science of Body, Mind, Spirit, where I'll talk about basic science principles of energies never created nor destroyed, the law of inertia, that a body in action stays in action and a body of motion stays in motion, and the law of cause and effect. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and explaining that in terms of the chakras and what's happening in yoga practice and what's happening in the Mosey method. And then I'll break down over Sunday, I'll do 2 workshops, and this is common to what I'll teach in any place I present. I'll do a couple of workshops where I'll break down the body parts and go through the chakras, but I'll speak more to the body parts and what the symbolism is of those body parts and how to relate to those body parts in terms of our mental, emotional issues and how to heal ourselves through those exercises. And I do a lot of one-on-ones. So while I'm here in Cape Ann, I'll probably see people one-on-one, maybe 15, 20 different people.
Right.
And those then extend beyond, and I see people over the telephone where they talk to me about their challenges and issues and their body aches and pains. And I teach them over the phone Mosey method exercises to help shift their nervous system into a more efficient state of being.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So we talked about Amy Cuddy. People just don't reach this just on their own accord, right? Right. So you must have read things, met people. What other people have influenced you and helped you heal, become a healer?
In terms of reading, I'm very fascinated by the work of Norman Doidge, D-O-I-D-G-E. He is an excellent scientist who studies the brain-body chemistry and how the brain and the body work together, and offers case studies and examples of people healing themselves through mindful body action. And he's got 2 books that I've devoured a couple of times, The Brain That Changes Itself and the whole concept of neuroplasticity. And I think the other one is the Brain's Way of Healing. So his work is very supportive of my work in a scientific perspective of it. From a practical one-on-one perspective, Elizabeth Huntsman DeAngelis, who is the owner of Cape Ann Power Yoga,
Right.
she was my yoga teacher that I have found to be the most influential in my work. And the beauty about her work is that when she met me, she met me as an equal. And she said, you have stuff to teach me and I have stuff to teach you. Let's teach together. And she was intrigued by my energetic awareness, and I was intrigued by her practical physical body understanding and her way of helping people find simplicity in complexity.
Right.
She makes a very complex, complicated thing feel simple. And to me, that's the essence of how the brain works. If our brains are very complex and very busy all the time, and if we can simplify, boom, this,
Yeah.
everything works better. And she does that magically.
Yeah.
One more person that influenced me was Alejandra Maureen, is a body worker and massage therapist, yoga teacher who teaches anatomy and physiology in the Denver area. And I hired him to teach anatomy to my yoga teachers. And just watching him explain the science of the body and how it works in relation to the chakras helped me understand this isn't just woo-woo.
Yeah.
This is science, this is anatomy, this is physiology, this is molecules and atoms reorganizing.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. That was wonderful information. Will you tell our audience how they can find you on the internet?
My website is my name, TeriLeigh, TeriLeigh.com. And I have many online courses, webinars, and I do one-on-ones over the telephone, and all that's available on my website, as well as 4 books on Amazon.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us today. You can, I'll put links to some of the things that TeriLeigh shared with us today, the books that she shared with us. And again, thanks for joining us. You can find Appreciative Recovery at appreciativerecovery.org. Sign on for our newsletter, and stay up to date with what we're doing. Thank you again. Thank you, Teri.
Namaste.
Namaste.